Welcome back to the podcast. I am Fallon Jordan. I am so excited and delighted to have Dr. Melanie Keller here. Dr. Melanie is a distinguished naturopathic doctor and a clear channel for Merlin the Magician, which I am like over the moon excited about. She brings ancient wisdom and modern insights for spiritual entrepreneurs, light workers, and light leaders. So if you're listening to this, you are definitely here for a reason. And I'm just so excited to hear more about like your soul journey and your mission. And as a naturopath and a clear channel, it's so cool that Dr. Melanie, she blends that unique biological requirements that a lot of light leaders have and helps them understand the intricacies of the human experience while on the ascension journey. And her unique gifts include the exploration into the realms of epigenetic and energetic intelligence, which is super cool. And this blend of scientific expertise and mystical guidance empowers individuals to embody their highest selves, enhance their gifts, and align with their highest timeline. So, welcome. I'm so excited for you to be here, and I'm so excited for everyone to tune in and just get in that Merlin magic.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
So, I'm curious how your journey started. Like, when did you decide you wanted to be a helper? When did you do the naturopath stuff? And then when did some of these other gifts kind of turn on?
Oh, okay. Well, it takes me all the way back to being raised in a really small town in rural Alaska.
Wow.
And so there were things that I had trouble with in my health, and like my mom talked to me about it once, and all of a sudden she was on the phone and calling up the herbal store in Juneau, which, literally things had to be flown up in a small plane. And
Wow.
I took all of the herbs and it just made me worse, and you're a kid and I was a teenager and I was like, oh, gee, my mom's spending this money on me. Um, and it's just not working. And that was the case throughout. And then I started working in the health food store in our own town, and I would research all the herbs to be like, okay, what'll give me energy? How can we order this in bulk? And I went to school for a while. I was on the 10-year plan for undergraduate. um, and I started out like in the education space because I was around a lot of educators. Yet, because I took that time to really listen to my channel, reflecting back, I then decided to go to naturopathic medical school. And I was very much a non-traditional student getting my undergrad, even more of a non-traditional student going to medical school, which was great because, again, there I sat in class and they would tell us these things to do for certain gut health situations. And I would be like, yeah, what else you got? Because I've been there, done that,
Yeah.
all the things. That's what I'm here for. But let me tell you, that's not working. And so I had one professor in particular who was like, if your patient tells you what's going on or that it's not working, listen to them. And I have to say, with all due professional courtesy and respect, that that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Especially when you are going to a busy practice. People can get mesmerized by the marketing and the what have you, and the, ooh, I got to go to Dr. So-and-so.
Yep.
Whereas I really prefer a high touch, it'll be high ticket, but you are getting my undivided, like investigative attention. And that's what I've
Amazing.
always wanted,
Mm-hmm.
because even in the space that I happen to have a certain area of expertise, I was also the colleague who'd say, no, like, what else you got? What else you got? Because we can't just keep putting people in this box or this algorithm.
Yeah.
And that led me to epigenetics. And at the time, it was all about this acronym that maybe a lot of people have heard, MTHFR, because it
The
has a
motherfucker.
memorable, exactly, has this memorable, hey, what's that? I have the mother beeper gene. And I'm like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. And that got all the claim to fame. And it was like everybody, and of course, every practitioner knows exactly what to do. And of
Yeah.
course, like I could foresee is like, yeah, how long is this going to last? Because, for example, somebody I saw and I said, look, I know that your other naturopath gave you this B complex, because of this one gene. However, it's not just one gene. there's a dance that happens with other genes and other pathways. And I said, could you please just pause this? Because they were having trouble with anxiety and insomnia. And I said, just give me 72 hours. You can think I'm wackadoodle. I don't care. Like, this is for you, you know, like this was
Yeah.
coming through very loudly. Now I realize as a channel. And so they did it and they came back, and this was a 20 something who was like, dude. And I was like, excuse me, it's doctor. You know, I had a little
Yeah.
bit of that, but I was like, not that I really care about my title, but I was like, what do you mean, dude? And he's like, all of my you know, like the anxiety, insomnia, it's all gone. Like, how did you figure that out? And oftentimes, because we're so inundated with information these days, people kind of expect almost like this dissertation, you know,
Yeah,
like, why? And I'm like, sometimes there's no answer. It's just
exactly.
trust. It's just
Yeah.
know that I know what I'm doing, right? And that does come from that old paradigm of white coat superiority, but I believe my patients and clients have known, you know what, I guess I'm just not going to ask. And even with colleagues who would come up to me and say, well, how do you get different results? What are you doing differently? And it was always this like, yeah, it was like Merlin in the closet going,
Yeah.
it's me. But I didn't really know. And I even still don't know to this day how to exactly articulate that. Right. I
Well,
mean, those in our space get it, but those outside of it, I'm still kind of like, I'm at least mentioning it, but at the same time, you got to let somebody digest the Merlin piece, I guess. Does that make sense?
yes. And in the last 20 seconds, I literally feel like you're giving me an energetic IV. Like I feel it
Ooh.
in my vein right now.
That is so fascinating because that's what Merlin did for me. He's given me an IV.
Oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
gonna cry.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for
Wow.
sharing.
That's amazing. Yeah, my friend
Yeah.
got a download probably a month ago, and she was like, Merlin wants to talk to you, do everything you can. So I watched like all of the TV shows, like all the movies about him, and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. And then you came across my Instagram, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to talk to her.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very, yeah, I love that. I love the synchronicity. So, yeah, he's quite a character. I'm realizing, you know, because I guess I thought it was me, which it
Mm-hmm.
is, but um, yeah, because there's a whole thing where he's like, I'm not the way that I'm portrayed. You know, it
Mm.
really is how you choose to see me. So over time, I've realized since he's been with me so long that like we've always been around the same age, right? So he presents to me
Cool.
at my age.
I love that.
Yeah. So the whole old man, you know, he's like, I'm not old. He's like, come on. You know, he's like, if that's what people need, that's great because he's like, I'm here to shake up the longevity space. I'm here to basically laugh at biohacking, right? He's
Yeah.
like, oh geez, you know, or if we hear another probiotic that's gonna save your life, he's like, yeah, right. So it's kind of nice because it was always like, is this me or why is this being overly emphasized? And I'm just so strong in it. Like even when it came to the media and I would pitch the media and my human brain would say, oh, they don't want to hear about my other opinion about probiotics or other opinion. And actually writers and producers and everybody were like, oh my gosh, let's give this to me because we're tired of hearing the same thing. So that's great.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
what would you
Yeah.
like to ask Merlin? Do you have
Ooh,
questions?
oh my gosh. Um, I've been feeling like in a very like ADD waiting period. And
Mhm.
like it's like this like big beautiful stuff is coming in, and I'm just kind of like a little kid like on Christmas Eve. So
Mhm.
any guidance around that would be like super amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get a little bit scientific because that's the whole point, right? We look at
Yeah.
the both sides. It's about having that wisdom of the science. So I think it's important to have some data. That's just me. That is my training. And what I would say is that we can identify our dopamine pathway, right?
Yeah.
So the reason why this is probably coming up is because I just looked at it myself. And I know that I have a propensity towards low dopamine and I feel it. And, you know, it's like we're looking for that reward, right? I
Mhm.
call it like, I just give me a win. I'm like,
Yeah.
and then we could be like tick, tick, tick on the roller coaster, right? And you're like waiting for your timeline
Yeah.
leap, etc. And you're like, okay, tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
And we want to have that over the top and then the whoosh and the wave. And so how I like to support this is to look at an epigenetic report, because as much as we can spend time on the energetic intelligence, which it sounds like you have that, you know, but it really is important in it, or it can be helpful to have this epigenetic intelligence where we're not just taking said supplement because we have a mutation at one gene,
Mhm.
but we look at the concert, you know, we look at how the orchestra plays together, especially in the dopamine pathway. And I find that it's really important because we've seen this inundation of, let's say, Adderall prescriptions, right? It's even
Yeah.
become real common to all walks of life. And we can actually tip our biochemistry in the wrong direction. And so we don't always have to use like specific, let's replace this dopamine. Um, let's actually support it by other pathways. So that's what I'm picking up a lot from you. Just it's like I've seen these reports for so long that I start to see it almost like a hologram.
Yeah,
And that's what he's
totally.
showing me. Um, so there are ways to, if anybody's ever done 23andMe or ancestry.com at any point in time, really, you can utilize your raw data. So it's not all the information about like our ancestry
Wow.
or you know, you have dimples, you don't have dimples. You can actually go up into your navigation bar under your profile and request your raw data.
Okay, I need to do that.
Yes, so that you can download that raw data. And now there are various reports that you can get more information about your body. So what I'm referring
Cool.
to is a particular report that I've used for years, but nowadays we can do this for cannabinoids, we can do it for skincare, for exercise. So I like to tell people if they've invested in that, it's the best $200 you can spend, really, depending on,
Mhm.
you know, when you did it, because you can utilize that raw data for things in the future. And that's again where
Cool.
Merlin's really coming forward and saying, yes, let's really make it be personalized medicine. Because if you're going to somebody who is claiming that they're doing precision or personalized medicine and they're not running your genetics, your more so your epigenetics. So genetics is like our hardware, things that we can't exactly change.
Mhm.
And epigenetics is the software or things we can change in
Mm.
the recipe.
Okay.
So those are the lifestyle choices, the being raised in a house with secondhand smoke versus not. How does that affect our health? So that's what I would emphasize in terms of, I feel like your body's receiving that even in a known sense, that if you were to look, say, for example, how do I support my dopamine pathways? The emphasis might be on tyrosine and taurine, or you know, like things like that, but we can start eating certain foods. That's one of the ways we can get these nutrients in, but there are some supportive supplements out there that are very specific for even cleaning our brain. We can have a dirty brain.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's ironic because I literally Christina Rice literally yesterday was the one that was like, yeah, you're feeling like really ADD and like feeling really impatient. And I was laughing because I literally just launched an ADD course.
Yes, I
And
saw
like
that.
you can Google Fallon ADD brain and like my brain scans are like all over, you can easily find them.
Oh.
And I was like, wow, this is coming back full circle. And then what you said about the 23andMe, that was what got me really understanding my like psychological history and like my family
Mm.
history with trauma. So I didn't know about the raw data. So I'm like super grateful for that. And then I did the Genomind like many, many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that was definitely insightful. But yeah, I haven't had anybody ask to look at those when I've gone to the doctor. So that's huge.
And the genome mind is so important. You know, I've actually told people, because I work with people with IBS and gut health problems, and they're often prescribed antidepressants. And I just be like, if you're at that point, and I'm not against pharmaceutical medication, but I would rather them have the best chance, especially with
Mm-hmm.
antidepressants, which are really just, let's try this one. Oh, and if you have any suicidal thoughts, what?
That's when
Like, I'm sorry, I'm
people don't,
really,
I know, but trust me, I get very fired up about this.
yeah,
I worked for Dr. Amen for 10 years. So this was like my life. And when people don't think we're living in a matrix of programming and they hear these commercials where it says it's an antidepressant to add to another antidepressant that may cause you to be suicidal, I'm like, you don't think that that's extremely fucking weird?
yeah,
Because I think it's the most barbaric thing. And I think I finally am at a point where I can laugh about it because the clues are there and there's people like you out there that really see the whole picture, and especially with the genetics and like how the medications, but even like the supplements too, like I know you talked about tyrosine, and like there's some people that don't even know that that exists, and it's like that could be the thing that like turns on your frontal lobes, and it's
yeah.
just wild. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, because you
Oh
can
wow.
cover
Yeah,
all
no,
of the
I got
bases.
the I got the whoosh feeling too. So I was like, oh man, we'd have a great time.
I know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oof. And then as far as I grew up in a dental household, so I think you'll
Oh,
appreciate this as
cool.
well.
Yeah.
Where if I were to say anything to anybody about brain health, and I asked this on my questionnaire, like, how's your dental hygiene? And some people will kind of be like, huh? And I'm like, do you wash your hands? You know what I mean? Like, not
Yeah.
to be facetious, but at the same time, I'm like, and or on a follow-up, I ask everybody, have you gone to the dentist since your last appointment? And if somebody
Hmm.
was seeing me in the past fairly frequently, like every couple of weeks, let's say, they'd be like, geez, I have to, but it was always the one time that they just went and had their teeth cleaned and they think it's just, well, I got my routine cleaning. And yet we can see it sequentially in their gut, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, digestion begins in the mouth and pH is a thing. And, like really
Yeah.
having to say, even with these pristine oral health folks, it's making this connection. And so I actually was just talking to my mom recently, asking if they had had a cognitive exam during now they've moved to Canada, but they recently had, like their physical or whatever. And I was like, Mom,
Hmm.
have you had what you would describe as a cognitive exam in your 70s ever? And she was like, you know what? No, because I was reviewing some media content where I wrote for an article about Alzheimer's and the APO genes.
Hmm.
And it kind of reminded me, I was like, oh, have I been surveying or asking people at a certain age? And so we do have a family history. And my mom immediately is like, well, you know how we floss every day and we have the best oral health. So our brains are good. So that's my point, is that I think oftentimes doctors also don't ask those simple questions. They don't
Hmm.
have time. You're there for maybe something that's more chronic or more serious, or we have to rule out the worst case scenario. But oftentimes these things that we do or do not do on the daily are what is the long term, or really sets the stage for what's going on. And
Yeah.
we now have clear evidence, I think. I don't know if you're familiar with like the Cyrex labs that looks at the plaques having had
Oh, cool.
um some microbial connections. And so that's one
Amazing.
of the things that, yeah, it's one that I just say, hey, this is available to people. Yeah, to just screen if they have a family history of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, when I first heard about the APOE gene and that I could test
Hmm.
it, I did. And it was very, I have a 2-3, which is good news. But like
Yeah.
just knowing that like was so helpful for me. And then the gum thing. I mean, I gosh, it was probably like 7 years ago, went to the dentist and they were like, your gums look like you're an old person and they're very inflamed and you're gonna have to have gum surgery. And I just remember like leaving and being like, oh my gosh, they wanted me to pay like $8,000 for gum surgery, which of course is gonna be extremely painful. At this
Hmm.
point, I at least know a little bit about how anesthesia like affects the brain. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. Saw a
Mm.
naturopath, got treated for the mercury and the lead and the Epstein-Barr and the mold, went back to the dentist and they were like, oh, your gums look so much better. I'm so glad. I didn't see in your chart that you got that surgery that I recommended though. And I was like, because I did it. And they're like, what did you do? And I was like, I did I went and actually saw a doctor that was looking at why my gums looked like an old person, like you told me in my 20s. And ever since then, I get my teeth cleaned every 3 months. And like, I'm like all about dental health. And it's so fun. Like, one of my friends is a traditional Chinese medicine doctor. And like, he just goes to like all these conferences focused on the mouth and your gums and dentist. And it's just so fun that like, it's becoming so much more normal. And like, thank goodness, right? Because every
Yeah.
time we start talking about this stuff, I'm like present of my saliva, and I'm like, ooh, I wonder what's in my saliva, as it slides down my entire throat and it touches all of my organs.
Oh, yeah. I'm sitting here thinking about the pH of my mouth
Yeah.
right now. Absolutely, because I haven't brushed after my coffee. Oh, wow. Yeah. No, I actually had to have gum surgery.
Oh my
And
gosh.
what was interesting was, well, it was from my bite. So it was this very
Okay.
specific area. And and I'm going to a dentist in Beverly Hills. I say this because my family is from rural Alaska, and they
Yeah.
were just appalled by my fees, like appalled.
Yeah.
They
I
were
get
like, this is
that.
just wrong, you know. And I was like,
Yeah.
what can I do? This was my neighbor's recommendation, etc. And the dentist and I hit it off, and she even had like gut problem, you know, she was going to come see me for SIBO. And then I get my treatment plan and I'm like, no offense, and I'm not a dentist, but this is ridiculous. This is all about the money. You are
Hmm.
all about the money. You do not care, you're not seeing me as an individual, which that's fine. I did want to get some of the work done, but it came down to the periodontist. And I have the localized surgery and I get all of this is what can happen. And of course, it goes very well. In fact, so well. So here I am, Fallon. I'm sitting in the waiting room with my manifestation mastery book. And yeah,
Amazing.
and I'll just say that this woman was quite the character. Um, Not warm and fuzzy, okay, at all. Like, whew, breezy, chilly. She's like a Disney character even. And so I'm sitting there with my book and she's kind of like, what are you reading? And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not going there. But she does an exam, you know, she's like, so I know you're a naturopathic doctor. What are you doing? And I was like, well, nothing really. And, you know, yes, I'm doing some healing in the sense of staying away from sugar, etc. Because even when I left to like cool the area, you could suck on a popsicle or have some ice cream. And I'm like, why are you encouraging me to go have something with
Inflammation.
sugar?
Yeah.
Like, I don't like really. And, you know, so I didn't really necessarily want to call her out on these like things that were obvious to me, but she's like, no, it's something else. And so I'm holding on to the book, right? It's like in my lap or something. And I'm like, well, I'm doing energy work. And she's like, what? I was like, yeah, this is my energy mentors book. And she's like, you know, just kind of brush it off like, yeah, whatever. But then I go for another follow-up. Now she's taking photos and she's like, can I show these to the UCLA, you know, students, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, what are you doing? And I was like, really, I'm doing energy work. I was like, I literally concentrate the energy at this point. And she's like, oh, we'll keep doing it. You know, it was a
Oh
very
my
clear,
gosh. That's
very, you
amazing.
know, yeah. And I was like, okay, I will. I was like, are you going to put that in my chart? You know, like, what did you actually, I would love to see her chart notes. Oh my goodness. Like,
Right?
yeah, because I think she was just absolutely stumped. But then we had another follow-up back at the dental, because, you know, they clearly refer to each other, but she just happened to be in that side of town at the time. And I overheard them talking about how all they had to do was just do a little quick, like, kind of shaving of my tooth that's hitting.
Mm,
Whereas going back to, they wanted to put me in like an Invisalign because that was a $7,000 chunk of money, right? Where
yeah.
I was like, well, if I just need to barely shift my teeth and I know how to place my tongue, you know, like I'm pretty well versed in what's going on here with my bite and such. And so the periodontist is like, no, let's just do a quick little thing. And they're bickering. And I could hear that it was money involved, you know, like it was like, well, if we do that, that'll solve the problem. And she won't
Wow.
need Invisalign. And the perio was like, yeah, do it. And so she did it. And I immediately felt the relief. And I immediately in that moment, I was like, oh, that's what they sold me the Invisalign was for. But really, a 30-second sandpaper, we'll
Yeah.
say, for bone, handled the problem. And I was
Wow.
not going to continue. And I felt it so clearly that I was able to, again, kind of make those adjustments in my mouth. So anyway, I just found it was one of the things that I actually shared with Christina, and she's shared it as a testimonial as well of like, and I've had another client who had periodontal, like really deep pockets.
Mm.
And we just happened to be doing our weekly Ahai sessions. And she's like, would you mind focusing on my gums? I was told that I have this problem. And similarly, I think we may have done 2 sessions. She goes back and they remeasure, and they actually, now this is big, folks, for people, for a practitioner to say, I think I may have mismeasured,
Hell yeah.
right? We're really about accuracy. And that's what they said. They were like, well, I must have mismeasured, because these pockets went from 9 and 10 millimeter, to like 3 and 4, which is not, we still need some work, but it's not at that surgical level,
Right.
so things that was another, like, okay, sure, of course I believe in Ahai. I've been using that for a while, but it's when I just felt Merlin go he, like, as far as like kind of more of a wand
Yeah.
swirl with that one. So yeah.
Love that. Yeah. Ahai is amazing. So Ahai is AHAI, and it's a type of energy healing that Christina Rice offers. It's like an amazing program if you want to get certified. And as someone who's Reiki certified, it's like a completely different experience.
Yes,
The first time
agreed.
I was treated with Ahai in person by Christina, I was like addicted, and I was like, my life goal is to do this as often as humanly possible.
Yeah, well, that's what's nice when you get certified, you can do it for yourself. And
Yeah.
yeah, and that also for me, again, as a doctor, I'm not saying that, it's just how we're programmed.
Mm-hmm.
That when I did the symbols, because I had received Reiki a lot with my background in body work. And I mean, even from a samurai, trained family from Japan. And I was like, okay,
Wow.
yeah, that was probably the most powerful session. But then Ahai just takes it to a whole nother level. And even
Yeah.
when I was new, I didn't know ascended masters. When she was talking about guides, I was like, who is showing up? Like what? and even though when I got attuned and then it did these symbols, I was like, my body, like full on, like I feel I'm plugged in. Like I will have physical, okay, you're on, and then I can feel it when I turn it off. So that was actually pretty cool. In fact, I think at the beginning I was ready to like record myself to see, because I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I can't deny that I feel this. And yet now seeing how it transmits, especially to others. And that's where I like to remain neutral. I just say, look, I'm not going to say really anything about this. If you're open energy work, great, because I'll be curious to see where this is for you on your time. Like, it's not me determining how this energy is going to work or fix or
Right.
do anything. It's your body that's choosing. And I've been absolutely fascinated by the outcomes. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. It's just when you're in the field of, infinite possibility, you've taken supplements, you've done testing, all this stuff. It's like a lot of times the thing you haven't tried is the energy work. And like that's the thing that really takes you to another level.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it does come from that, because placebo is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I mean this with professional courtesy and respect again, like you can have a really, really enthusiastic, right? Like healer. I don't refer to myself as a healer. I don't even really care for energy work. That, it's like more like energy flow. Um,
Ooh, I love that.
yeah, an energy
Done.
flower.
I am going to start using that.
Nice. Yeah.
Power of
I
words,
just,
right?
yeah,
Because even
exactly.
work, right? It's still work.
Yeah, light worker, energy work. I just go, oh, we use that because that's where humans are right now. But really, if we're getting into that stream of flow
Mm.
consciousness, elevation, even the elevating your frequency, it's more like, I think we're going to be coming into a place where we create more words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm so curious to know more about what you've experienced with Merlin. When you were like saying, watching things or researching him, like, because I've done some of that myself, right? And it's like we're receiving codes. It took me the longest time, actually, that I finally watched The Sword and the Stone. And then it hits me. I'm like, oh wow, this was created in the 60s, you know.
Yeah.
Like I first started watching it and I was like, oh, this is a little old school. But then I was like, I was called to watch it again. And I'm like, no, that's the point. Like that is exactly, um, and just how normalized he was. He wasn't, again, being
Yeah.
of masculine energy. He wasn't considered crazy or, hunted down. He was actually revered. And in fact, he said
Yeah.
to me, he's like, use my fame. And I was like, all right, Merlin, like, calm down, a little bit. And he's like, no, really. He's like, as far as like more income flow, he's like, I'm on money. He's like, utilize that. And I was like, what do you mean you're on money? And I got led, thank you, Google, to see that he is minted on a British pound. Yeah. Yeah. He's part of the legends and myths and legends or something, but it's like you can get a gold coin, you can get a silver coin with Merlin. And he's like, see? And I was like, oh, okay. He's like,
Wow.
I'm not he's like, there are people who really believe it's like in Ireland, which I do have an ancestral connection to,
Yeah.
that talk about, like, if you ask a local in Ireland if they believe in fairies, they're going to say yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm like so obsessed with everything you just said.
Okay.
Yeah. So Fallon means grandchild of the ruler in Irish.
Okay.
And I do have Irish stuff on my 23andMe,
Mm-hmm.
convinced I was a mermaid a lot of
Yes.
times because like
Okay.
I literally feel that's probably I think part of my problem right now too is like I haven't been in water for a while and I literally
Mm.
just feel like I'm coming out of my skin. And then I ended up having a really like amazing work day at a coffee shop this week called Myths and Legends. And every
Okay.
time I do a shamanic journey with Elizabeth Barber, you might have seen her name come across like our
Okay.
mutual channels, but she's always like, you need this coin, and I'll pay like $20 from some type of coin from Europe. And she's like, put it in yours too, hug it, kiss it, like play with it. So like all of those things are like crazy, beautiful
Yes.
synchronicity. So thank you so much for sharing all that.
No, thank you. Because I love it when, not to say that the ego needs the confirmation, but it's nice when that channel flow, when you can go, oh, we were tuned
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
Yeah. I just yeah, I love that he is like people treated him as if he was just a like it almost kind of treated him like a scientist, I felt like in some of the depictions of him, because they were asking in one of the versions of Merlin, they kept having this building fall and they're like, I don't know why this building keeps falling. We have the best architects, like best mathematicians. You have to come and figure it out. And he walks up and he just like does his like energetic scan and he's like, there's like something there that's like causing the building to fall. And it was just like, oh, we just wasted years and years and years trying to and constantly rebuilding it and then it falling down, and he fixed it immediately. And I think that's one of the gifts is like knowing that like things can get shifted so quickly. And yeah, I definitely feel like his personality is similar to my cat. Which is probably one of the reasons I'm like so obsessed with Merlin, because I'm obsessed with my cat. He has that
Okay.
personality of he's just funny. Like he likes to give funny reasons for descriptions of things. Like he wanted to talk about his friend whose name is Rain. And so instead of saying rain, he like shows an umbrella. And it's like,
Mhm.
haha, I get it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's this kind of snarky humor,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's yeah.
Which
Hmm.
I like because I mean, there's that part of me, and I'm sure you were like this, where like we want to be the good student, right? Like, on the things that are important to us, like we want to do well, we want to get good grades. And I think that's like that little part of like the ego that still sticks around. And when it comes to someone giving you kind of like riddles and stuff. Like I love that. I think it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's part of like where I'm in a transition between being known in this SIBO, if people are familiar with small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And I've been practicing this for over 10 years and really was very scientific at the beginning in terms of like algorithms, right? So you take, and I was even part of creating the algorithms on an herbal level. And then I realized I was like, why do people continuously have to take certain herbals? Or it became what I referred to as a whack-a-mole. It's like, oh, it's not SIBO,
Yeah.
it's parasites, it's mold, it's Epstein-Barr, it's, and I was like, okay, we can continue chasing all of these things. And I'm glad that you got the results that you did, but I was like, what's underneath all of this? The
Exactly.
candida, the whoever. And I'm like, they are
Mm-hmm.
all affected by pH. And that's where my family came back into the like, well, yeah, pH in the mouth. And
Yeah.
they came to my medical school and they saw people drinking these apple cider vinegar drinks, like diluted, right? The brand
Mm-hmm.
name. And they were just appalled. They were just like, I cannot believe that naturopathic doctors sip on these things all day long. Or I was addicted to my mineral water coming off of soda past life,
Mm-hmm.
and they're
Yeah.
like, do you know what that's doing to pH? And I was like, enlighten me, family, And then finally, after X amount of years in practice, I was like, hang on a second, let's go back to simplified physiology and the problem that lies in small intestine bacterial overgrowth. The reason why we get this traffic jam happening is because we have two ends of the problem. One that we now know is autoimmune, like from a food poisoning related. But the
Mm.
other, the stomach emptying, is the first part that is creating this wave that should be cleaning things out. And it is based on stomach emptying. Well, stomach emptying has this like really specific Goldilocks pH where it will happen. And if it's not happening, no offense, but I don't care how many hours of gargling you're going to do to stimulate the vagus nerve. I don't care how many prokinetic agents that you layer on top. And I'm saying this facetiously because I was there, I've done these things. And then all of a sudden, once I addressed the pH and looked at that as the solution, all of a sudden everything changes. And it can
Wow.
change so quickly and it can be so rapid that even I've had owners of breath test companies. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I've talked to researchers and like, oh, so how did you get this outcome? And again, it's not me, it's facilitating someone else's journey. But it would be like, I did like less is more, to be honest, right? Instead of
Yeah.
giving people umpteen supplements and killing agents, and then of course it's common to then replace the bacteria with a probiotic. And I'm like, no, all of that is just, I could say it, Merlin's like, that's madness, and people are like you say that, especially those who have me on retainer. I have this one CEO who just knows. In fact, it just happened this week. He's like, I've got to talk to you. I just went to, my psychiatrist for like sleep meds, but because they're making an adjustment on their side and their knowledge, he's like, I still run it by you because it affected my gut. And lo and behold, and nobody saw this. And he's like, that's why I, come back, always come back to you. Is I was like, well, actually, this thing that they gave you is fermented by a very specific species. And you had to look a little deeper to recognize that this product for sleep, and it was marketed as this is GABA, is GABA product, but the GABA itself had been fermented with this, that was the medium.
Wow.
And so he was just like, oh my gosh. And I was like, how we know how certain microbes can affect you. And he was just blown away. And that was the value in his investment with me. He's like, boom, just knowing that changes everything. And, or, he's also somebody who doesn't exactly ask questions anymore. He
Yeah.
just says, hey, the boat is being rocked. And I'll be like, just the slightest little tweak. And he's like, okay, we're good. I can get on this airplane. I can go to this conference. And yeah, so it does make it fun, but I've been finding that ever since Merlin is with me, I'm less inclined to want to attract in or call in the problems of IBS and SIBO. Makes sense. Like
Yeah.
they just really want to like fix me. I've been going through this for years, which number one is really sad to me. And now I'm in this transition of like, I really want that possibility paradigm of not only great, you can help me with my gut and we'll get fast results, but then how do we maintain this? How do I
Yeah.
maintain this, improvement or this longevity, whatever you want to say, optimization, for the ascension journey and or while going through energetic upgrades or going through this waiting period, like you're saying, of like you sense the anticipation of what's coming in. And that can be really exciting, but at the same time, it can, and sometimes we're all positive, we're all energetics, but it's like, you know what, I'm tapping my toe and it's starting to wear on my menthy,
Yeah.
like I call it the dimmer switch, instead of saying
Yes.
depression, I just rather say my light is a little dimmed and I need to acknowledge that
Yeah.
and not feel
Literally.
bad or not feel like I'm being enough,
I literally
And
dimmed my ring light to what it normally sets at today. So that was like
ah,
why I was laughing. It's like literally
okay.
my light is lower.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there are things we can do about that. And not that it's not always a problem because I've gone through that too, where we can't necessarily pinpoint it. I'm
Hmm.
in that, we'll call it a connecting flight, right? Of saying, I'm
Yes.
known for this and people will still approach me about it, but I want to be doing this. I want
Yes.
to be having conversations about Merlin. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This was like so amazing. And I'm just so grateful. Like I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I get to hang out and talk with her. And of
Yay.
course, my quartz pendulum from Christina was just like swinging away all morning. It was like there's a lot of energy to move. So I'm just so grateful that we got to talk more about this. Is there anything else you wanted to share just for people who would want to work with you? Because I'm sure everybody listening is like, you're my new doctor.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, come check things out. I'm open to direct messaging and I'm on LinkedIn and social media. I'm not on the TikTok, I will say. That just hasn't called to me at all. So
It's like a full-time job. That's why some people who do it make money doing whatever it is that they do, but
mhm.
it's a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Awesome. Well, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much. Is there
Mhm.
anything else you wanted to say in closing or anything else that Merlin wanted to share?
Merlin has things to share with you.
Oh my God. I
Yeah,
am so
yes.
ready.
So, okay. Do you want me to share them here or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's as you were saying, like in preparation for this, it was clearly getting very loud. I'll call them screenshots, and then I saw your ADHD program and I was like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, he is telling me that there are very specific products for you. Um, are you familiar with Seeking Health?
No, but I'll pull it up right now.
Yeah. So Seeking Health, it's called Strategene. That's the report
Okay.
that I've done for years. So that's number one. That's again more of that technical blueprint information.
Perfect.
And because I have this experience with doing and working, and like I say, I can see things in my head, which it's nice to be able to say that.
Yes.
So I'm being told that to support your dopamine pathway, they actually have a product called dopamine nutrients.
Okay.
That would be something to check out. And then they also have a product called brain nutrients.
Okay.
And so there's some details about how to go about that. The brain nutrients, you actually, because it's a lozenge, you can break it. It's about maybe let's say the size of a quarter, just shy of a quarter.
Okay.
So you can break it into pieces, and you might want to start with that because that starts the cleaning of the brain process. And I really like to isolate supplements one at a time, And if I follow up with somebody and say, "Well, what do you think of that?" and they do I call it the shrug the shoulders, like I don't know what's changed. And if I know them pretty well, I'm able to discern, but that should be one that's actually pretty clear, literally of just like the dimmer switch going up,
Cool.
getting brighter. And then as far as if it's about motivation or lower frequency, we'll call that, right? Then that dopamine nutrients. And I'm just letting you know that if we saw the strategy and report and you can see that your makeup, your human makeup is a little slower on the uptake of dopamine, then that will confirm. I'm just saying that that's what I see, is that I would likely see on your report that you have some slower pathways, enzymes rather, in that dopamine pathway.
Yeah, I think it's hard for it to go in my cells and stay.
Mm.
I think it goes in and out too quickly.
And
I
that's
think.
probably why I'm being told these nutrients, because if you look at these pathways, I think you would drink this up, because everything on the report, it has either this is increasing the enzyme's activity or decreasing the enzyme's activity. And to
Okay.
nerd out, because I can see you're there, it's all evidence-based. So it's
Cool.
not there out of theory or clinical. It's like, no,
Yeah.
we actually have, researched papers. When people first look at it, that's why they're like, thank God, that's why I'm paying you, investing in you, right? Where I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, because if I've been doing it for long enough that I can see and I can make those connections. But I think you might just clearly see, oh, it's a cofactor. Oh, it's a this. And oh, that sinks in over here. And this is how I can support it versus, and drink it up versus bypass. So cool.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'm so
you're welcome.
grateful. It's so
Yeah.
funny, like all these things about my, like my life and brain health and working with Dr. Amen for so long, just in the past few weeks, it's like all these things are coming back around forefront. And I'm like, yeah, like I just kind of one day decided to stop all of my brain supplements. And like, I definitely need to get back on that wagon for a little while.
Yeah, well, I think it's just more of that out of curiosity, because I think it does tickle your,
Yeah.
like you need
Yeah.
that intellectual stimulation, but maybe from a different right place
Yeah.
and paradigm. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yay.
Awesome. Thank you so, so
You're very
much.
welcome. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Merlin. So grateful. And I will see everyone in the next conversation. And I will put all of Dr. Melanie's contact information below so you can get in her world. Bye for now.